Hey, podcasters, it's Crystal at Crystal Clear Moments, and I have here my dear friend Carla Washington. So before I go into her bio and tell you all her, her ins and outs and who she is and who the wonderful person that I'm going to present to you, I want to tell you how we're connected, because I think this is real important for you guys to know. Like, why is Carla? Why was she invited to be on Crystal Clear Moments podcast? So first of all, her and I are part of the same women's organization. It's a community service organization that focuses on uplifting, mentoring, and supporting teens as a foundational principle. But there's other important areas such as women and sickle cell and March of Dimes and senior citizen, and we can talk about others. And it's called, the name of our organization is Top Ladies of Distinction. And both of us are members of the Phoenix chapter. TLOD is how we refer to it. We also, and you may hear me say this, I may go in and out. Typically, when we're together in our organization space, we refer to each other as lady. So this is Lady Carla. And if we're in our space, I'm Lady Crystal. So I don't know. I think every time we say that, we laugh. Like,
I don't know why. It's funny.
I know,
hey, lady.
I know. And it's something about like saying that, like, lady, and other people look at you when we're out in public,
right,
like at events, or we're at our meeting offsites and we're referring to each other like lady. Everyone looks at us like, what are you saying? But the part of that is so respectful too, because, it's honoring each other in that. So if you hear me refer to Carla as Lady Carla, that's why, because most of the time when we connect,
that's why
we're in our space of community service for TLD. So welcome, Lady Carla.
Thank you, Lady Crystal.
Thank you. So I want to read your bio because I think it tees up to what we're going to be talking about, Crystal Clear Moments. Because I do think the industry that you're in right now is probably the industry that's changing the most, I think. Outside of maybe like a STEM space or engineering space, I think your industry is being impacted the most. So
absolutely,
I'll give you an idea of, like, you guys will know what I'm talking about when I complete this bio. But Carla is from native of Phoenix, Arizona, which is like 5 people that I know, and 2 of them are my kids. That are natives, funny. Because there aren't, I'm sure you meet people who are like, but I think it's growing.
Right.
I think it's growing because I look at my kids and their friends and their parents are like me, just moved here and had families. So I think that native, especially the Black Arizona native piece, is growing. More
That's
so.
the rare part.
Yeah, that is. But what's interesting? I think I heard a statistic that the state of California, I'm not talking about like LA County or any of that, the state of California is like 6% or something like that Black. Wow. The state. But when you get those concentrated pockets, it changes.
Larger. Absolutely.
Whereas here in Phoenix, we're hovering between I've heard between 4 and 6%, as a state. So when you think about it, we're just not in a concentrate. All need to move together. Is that it?
And that's the difference in Arizona, is there's not a Black place to live per se.
Right. Yeah.
And when people move here, they're like, where do the Black people live? And it's like, well, we live everywhere.
Which I like that, because I was raised in a very segregated space in the Midwest. Very traditional Midwest is very segregated, still is to a degree. Black neighborhood, white neighborhood, and then, you stayed where you were. Here, I don't sense that. And I like that,
Right. I mean, in this current time.
Yes, in this current place.
Obviously, back in the day, in the 60s, and that kind of thing was a little bit different.
Yeah.
But now we're everywhere. Yeah. And we should be.
Yeah, good. You gave me an idea. I think I'm going to have to do something about Crystal Clear Moments, about Arizonians, who've been here in this state for some generations. I think there's a story to tell.
Oh, absolutely.
I definitely think so. I think people don't realize the impact that the culture has made internationally from this state.
Right.
From this state. So, all right. So Miss Carla, Lady Carla, I went to ASU. So I'm not a grad from ASU, but I paid tuition. So,
go Sun Devils.
Girl, go Sun Devils, right? We pay the tuition. So I feel like I got a degree there too. Bachelor's of Science, organizational communication. So communication is important to you.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's going to show up later as we start to dig into your space and in your world. Went to get her master's degree in human resources. Not only communications are important to you, people matter.
You know what? Every day, all day, we don't exist without other people.
Right. People matter. And as we go on into this, first quarter of the 21st century, we really, I think, understand why people matter,
right,
and how we have to make some changes, some soft skill changes,
absolutely,
to meet the people need where they're at, because they're demanding to be seen, heard, and valued.
Absolutely, and I mean, and we should be. And so, what are we doing so that, number one, people feel they matter?
Yeah.
And that's all of us want. At the end of everything going on is, do I matter? Who do I matter to?
That's so true. Yeah.
And it's about, it makes you feel good.
Right. It does. So Lady Carla says, I would say, spent 30 years or so in a human resources space.
Correct.
In corporate America. I'm talking, the top 50 corporate organizations, Fortune 50, FedEx is where you parked and became your home.
Correct.
So she's speaking not for FedEx. She's representing Carla today.
Correct. Absolutely.
In terms of what you're sharing.
Yes.
Because I think the HR space, we're having a moment. There's a crystal clear moment going on.
Right.
And I don't think that mainstream gets it. If you're part of a corporate space and there you have an HR department,
correct,
you need to know that it's under construction.
Right. Well, it's funny that you say that HR is under construction, because I always say HR does not stand for hit and run. And so HR is literally about the words that represents the human resource. You have HR in your home, you have HR in your church, you have HR in any organization, because it's all about the humans that are providing services or providing familial relations or whatever that case is.
Right.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, that's a good lens, because that's your space. So what was your initial crystal clear moment when you were, in school and you were shaping and framing like how you wanted to show up in the world, what lane you wanted to play in? Because obviously you knew early, because you've been in this area for quite some time, So when did that occur?
Well, funny that you say that, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I do remember at ASU, there was a class and it was for Black students. And I remember our instructor saying, Carla, what is it that you want to do? And I said, I want to dress up and sit behind a desk.
You want to be cute.
And I thought she was going to have my head. And
well, for some reason that mattered to you. Like, where did that come from?
Because that's what I saw.
Yeah.
I saw other Black women and Black people in my family dress up and go to work. And so,
praise God for dressing up.
Well, then there's that. And so that's what I saw. And to be honest with you, I had to take a journey that I didn't know I was going to take. And so I was a business major at ASU. I was not excelling as a business major, because that's not where my interests were.
Right.
But that's what you did, because you were a business major, education, nursing, or engineering.
Right. Yes.
And so at the point where I could no longer be in the College of Business, I had to find a new major. And so I had the nerve to have a crystal clear moment and read what the majors were about and what the classes were about.
Yeah.
And I read information about communication. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can do this. I can speak. I can write. I can do this. And as soon as I majored in something that was of interest to me, a light came on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's you make a good point. I want to continue that, but I want to pause here, because we have listeners that are young professionals or still figuring it out, right?
Right.
College, everyone isn't college bound.
Correct.
And I've always believed that. But if you are,
Right.
or if you're like, I want to explore, college is a space where you figure out
Absolutely.
where you want to go.
Absolutely.
Most of us go to college saying we want to do one thing, end up with another. I went in, I'm an accounting degree. Me.
Oh, wow.
Me.
I love that.
I'm just, I mean, I was good in math, so it made
Right.
sense to me. Be an
Sure.
accountant, and something about CPA just sound really like I can do that.
Absolutely.
I went from that to criminology, and then went from criminology to psychology.
Wow.
So, and that, and I was looking, I made that full little circle of
Right.
what I want to be when I grow up. So
Right.
criminology went out the door when I had to tour the prison.
Well,
I just didn't see myself there.
well, experiences
that
help
was
shape.
that was the best thing. I think I changed my major the next semester. Wow. So then I was like, no, I don't think I can do prison work
You're
or
like, I'm
be near
good.
one. I'm good. Yeah. Not to say that that's a bad. I just knew
Right,
it
for
wasn't
you.
for me. And then people matter. Way people think, show up, feel, all that. So
Right.
like you, I read it and I was like, oh, that's what I want to major in.
Right,
So I wanted to
right.
share that for people who are still exploring.
Exactly.
Continue to explore. Don't stop.
100%.
Don't stop. So continue on with your story. Would you telling us about your crystal clear moment going into HR?
HR happened by happenstance.
Mm-hmm.
I was working for DoubleTree Hotel Corp. I was taking reservations, and I loved taking reservations. Graduated from ASU, and I was like, I suppose I should do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were some openings for database analysts. And I was like, okay, I have a degree. I can do this. And I applied twice and didn't get the jobs twice. And I had the nerve to be mad. I already
blessing,
told you I
probably.
wasn't a business major
Right.
success and that I like to write and speak. And so they had another opening for a trainer. Guess what I did? I read the job description. It said to train reservation agents, which I'm like,
You're
can
doing
do
that. You're doing that. You're actually doing that job, right?
It said to create different things for the call center and all these different things about communication and presenting. I said, I can do that.
All of that, yeah.
And I can tell you, I still know the outfit I wore for my interview. I know what shoes I
that's a
had
moment.
on.
That's a moment.
And I left doing the presentation and I was like, oh, that was so fun.
Yes.
And I got the job.
Yeah.
And that was my introduction into human resources.
I love that you said it's so fun because when you are in your purpose, it is fun.
Right.
Right. Every day isn't roses. We know that.
Correct.
Life isn't. But
Correct.
overall, the experience of doing what God created you to do, your
Yes.
purpose, into
Yes.
whatever you figured it out.
Right.
It is truly a joy.
Yes.
It truly is a joy. It doesn't feel like work.
Right.
Even though work is required.
Exactly.
Excellence, actually, I believe is required.
Yes.
When you're in your purpose.
Yeah.
Because you're there. Now make it the best.
Right. It was, I loved it. I loved it.
Good. So now you figured out, I think human resources is the place for me. So I love to ask HR professionals this question.
Okay.
Tell me the craziest story that you ever had to deal with. The craziest HR story that you can share, because when you deal with people,
Right.
you deal with all the baggage they come
deal
to
with a
work
lot
with.
of people.
Yes.
And I'll say one of the funniest
Okay.
stories is I was interviewing because in the HR space, I've also functioned as a recruiter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so I remember interviewing somebody, offering her the job, and she leaped across my desk and hugged me. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Oh,
She wanted that job bad. She
Right.
said, I'm kissing you for this. I'm hugging
Right.
you for this.
I was like, oh, okay, congratulations.
Yes.
However, I'm going to need you to sit back down,
I need you to sit down.
go back on the other side.
Right.
So that's one of the funnier moments. that I've
Unexpected.
had.
She was so
Yes.
excited to get the job that
Yes.
she just leaped across. That is fun. I don't think I've ever
Right.
heard that story before.
But in that story, that's someone being genuine. And that's the human side of being a human resource person.
Right.
You know.
So you understood it from the human side.
Correct.
And appreciate it. Just took you by surprise.
Right.
You know, but you got it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I understand that.
So that's one of my funnier ones.
So being so now HR professionals are called like chief people officers, and but at the end of the day, it's still
HR.
It's still HR, right? It's still HR.
Right.
So I can remember, and I think this is changing in corporate. When I was in corporate, if people were in a meeting and HR walked in, people would go, "Oh my God, HR's here,"
Yes,
and
they
then
still do
all of
that.
a sudden they would shrink. And I just I always felt that was a disservice for the role of HR because that's
Right.
not what they're there for.
Right.
And if you need to be quiet, then what are you saying that you shouldn't anyways? I mean,
Right.
what should you monitor if you're, being respectful and being, a good corporate citizen?
Right.
Why should you change? But that still happens, huh?
It does still happen. And I think there's a negative connotation with the role of an HR person. Some people identify HR as the party planner. HR is the role enforcer, or HR is diminishing how we can be or represent ourselves as a company or as an entity. And really, the role of HR is to make sure that companies and people within the company, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And I think what happens is a lot of times, and not just with HR, but just with things in general, we like to think that everything is so up here and so way high that we can't talk about it, we can't see it, and everything's really at eye level. And so I hope that people would change how they think about human resource professionals when you see them in your workplace, because we're really there to help, explain, and make it so everyone is there doing what they should be doing and you're being treated well while you're doing it. That's
Right.
the goal.
Yeah, that's the goal. So I mentioned earlier that HR is under construction, and I say that because of in my business, Crystal Clear Results.
Right.
A lot of my clients, especially when I go into the corporate space, I often end up with like the chief people officer
Right.
or head of HR.
Right.
And we typically get together and we talk about the business. And most of my strategy is through their lens.
Okay,
And
right.
then, of course, recommendations. So hearing them say, I'm talking like prior to COVID, during COVID,
Right.
and post-COVID,
Right.
and working with the same groups, I hear them changing from
Absolutely.
just the requests for me, some of the pain points they're personally dealing with. A couple of folks quit and
Right.
said, you know what, this is not for me. So in your opinion, tell me what you think what is this? I don't know if it's an evolution in that space, if it's evolving, or is it a revolution where it's completely like changing, like a revolt, like flipping?
I think the HR space is changing from a perspective of prior to COVID, we were just functioning because that's what we do. We function. Everyone was just functioning. And to me, even in the midst of chaos, and COVID was chaos for a lot of companies and a lot of people, even in the midst of chaos, you find creativity, you find something good, and you find something bad. And I think the good that came out of it for people personally is they realized what really mattered to them. Okay. After COVID and trying to function in a corporate space was difficult because now that people realize what matters to them, work didn't matter to a lot of people. And being told how to do your function didn't matter to people. And so how do HR professionals, how do we create a space where we can get people back on track to the business of work? And you have to be able to acquiesce to the needs of your people.
So when you say it doesn't matter, like, kind of go into that a little bit. Let's dive into that. Like, what is that? What do you mean doesn't matter? Was it they reprioritized it? Was it, because I think there's an element to the core of all of us that says it's work is work is work, you know, unless you're doing your passion.
Right.
And like you said, some folks found their passion.
Right.
And some folks who didn't realize work wasn't their, this job I'm in is not my passion.
Right.
So like, what do you mean when, you know, it's like any examples or kind of go further with, you know, it just didn't matter?
I think people realize I don't need to work this hard for satisfaction.
So do you think the bar of excellence is dropped or expectations dropped because of it?
I don't think expectations dropped. I believe employees' reactions to expectations changed.
That's huge.
And so
That's huge.
how do I get my identity? And a lot of people get their identity through their job. Because when you meet people, what do you do?
Yeah. Your name, where do you work, your job. And
Right.
sometimes you spend the entire first meeting talking about your job,
Right.
which is
And
not
people
even
found
really
out there are
good.
other things that mattered. And I will tell you, I was recently at an HR meet and greet, and somebody said to me, "Where are you from?" And I know they meant the corporate space. And I said, "I'm a native Phoenician." And they were like, "What?" I said, "I'm a native Phoenician." And then went into a conversation about that. And then through the back door, I was like, "And here is where I work."
Right. And they're actually coaching people now when you go out and network to don't spend so much time in your career space. Like really get to know the person
Right.
to start to develop the relationship.
Right.
You know, I want to know who you are, like where you're from, your family's here,
Exactly.
you know, what are your hobbies, those types of things. So you're, like you said, you've already kind of made that switch.
I made that transition because in my 20s and 30s, it was about handing out business cards.
Right.
And I can honestly tell you, I don't have a business card now. And this same person who asked, where was I from? They're like, "Do you have a business card?" I go, "I absolutely do not." And they were like, "Oh," I'm like, "So we can just connect by having a conversation." And again, when people are comfortable with who they are, comfortable with their life and where it's going, they're able to have those conversations. And networking can be difficult for people.
Yes.
And
Very difficult for a lot of people.
Right. And it's difficult for me sometimes. I'm an HR professional and my job is to talk to people and understand people and pull out of them what I need so that I can address whatever the situation is. However, I would also categorize myself as an extroverted introvert.
Yes. That's definitely, that's actually a dimension, that I think like extroverts get their energy from people, and introverts get their energies from things that aren't tangible. But
Right.
you learn how to flip that, or according to your audience,
Right.
Right. You learn how to move that needle.
Correct.
And sometimes it's not comfortable. Like you said, there's times you're like, I don't want to be an extrovert right now.
Right. It can be uncomfortable. And, and maybe that's my other crystal clear moment because I am an introvert. I purposely put myself in roles where I have to be an extrovert.
So good. I coach that. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a workshop now on their Myers-Briggs, but it's a different one because I'm certified in that. But this is a little unique
Okay.
because it's called Myers. It's called it's your type within the workplace.
Right.
So it breaks it down because think about it. You and I are different
Right.
in a workspace, right?
Absolutely.
So you could be 100% extrovert at work, but home, you could be an introvert.
Right.
So I really love this because we do the assessment, how you show up at work.
Right.
That's what matters, right?
Exactly.
How you are with your friends doesn't really come into play. So like you said, you really are a core introvert,
Right.
but your job, your role, you probably show up as an extrovert.
Absolutely.
So when you tell people that, they go, oh, you can't be an introvert. They don't believe you.
Yes, I can.
But I can see that.
Right,
That I
right.
know you. I know when you go into introvert space.
Right.
Now that you said that, because you do, like, okay, I'm clicking the introvert.
Right.
I'm going to be an extrovert right now. Click
Right.
that.
And I think people need to understand how people show up at work and how you show up for your family and how you show up in organizations are different.
Yes.
And every team, whether it's your church team, your work team, your organization team, your home team, you need different players to make it work.
Right.
And I'm an observer. And sometimes people take the fact that people are observers or that they're quiet, that they're mean or that they don't like to interact with people. And the one thing you have to realize is every group needs an observer.
Every group.
You need someone who sees what's not being said and who hears what's not being said.
Because the extroverts aren't.
Right.
They're so busy being extroverted. And this is not, I mean, I'm a true extrovert. So I know what I have to tell myself. It's quiet time.
Right.
You know, whereas if I have someone in my circle who that's their natural is an introvert, observers and watchers,
Right.
they catch things that sometimes we don't.
Right.
Because you're in a different space. You're
Right.
working your energy differently. So I agree with you.
Right,
You have
right.
to have that person just on the outside checking things out, you know, watching, and they're not like snitches or anything.
Right.
They're just catching things that may fall that we may have missed because you do miss things.
Right. Right.
So what would you say now in HR? So now we know people have realized my 9 to 5 doesn't really matter the way it was. So
Sure,
they've
sure.
transitioned and they've reprioritized things. So now they're showing up to work.
Right.
So what are you seeing different behaviors? So what behaviors are you seeing now that's been developed, that's coming out that you didn't see prior to this awakening?
I think the behaviors that, and I'll say HR professionals in general,
Okay.
because a lot of my friends are in HR. A lot of my family is in HR, organizational management. I don't know how we're all in this space. But the different behaviors that you see is that people tolerate less. And it's not a bad thing
It's not.
because that means companies have to open up and change how they receive their employees. And you notice I didn't say how they react to their employees, but how you receive your
Good.
employees.
It's good.
And when you know what your work group does outside of the walls of your corporate environment, you understand them more and you're able to get more out of them.
So how does a leader transition to that space to get to know them more?
You have to build the relationship. And I think for leaders, and it sounds easy and you hear all that, build relationships, build relationships. How do I do that? Well, you do that by some basic things. Let's start by saying hello.
Right. And we're going to talk about that because you have a space on LinkedIn that I'm going to read some of your posts that I love. And one of your posts is about simply saying hello.
Correct.
And you know, when I read that post, I immediately thought about my mother because she would say to me when I was a little girl, you know, I'm sure my other sisters, my brother, if we're walking down the street or we're in the grocery store, wherever we're at, speak first and smile and say hello. And I would always say, she didn't speak back or she looks mean. And my mom would be like, so what? Smile and say hello. That's on them.
Right.
You know, you smile and say hello. And you could be the only hello and warm smile they get.
That's it.
That day. That was when you posted that it's like a family value for us.
Right.
So because I speak to everybody, it drives my husband crazy.
Right.
I speak to little kids. I speak to little kids. I speak to adults. I speak to everyone.
Right.
And I would say 25% of the time they don't speak back.
That's all right.
That's okay. But I love that you said it starts with a simple greeting.
Absolutely. And I tell leaders all the time. And I encourage you all who are listening to this and you're in a leadership position, you have people who report to you, is you have to recognize that the people that come into your space, that they are coming from home environments where they have no control. And when they come to work, this is where they exert their control. And if you think about people who I refer to as extra credit in the workplace, and they're exerting a lot of energy in your environment, a lot of negative energy, you have to recognize work is the one place where they can take control. They're coming from home environments where no one is speaking to them, no one is acknowledging them, and no one lets them know that they matter. And so as a leader, when your people get to work, you acknowledge all of them, even if they get on the nerve in your last baby toe. The fact that you've acknowledged them makes a difference in someone's life.
It has to be authentic.
Absolutely.
Because we all know fake.
Correct.
And you want to lose trust, and I don't think you can rebuild trust if the person thinks you're not authentic.
Right.
You
sincere.
Can't. You lose it. Be sincere. Absolutely. Say it from the heart.
Right.
You know,
and do it from within your personality.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so you may not be able to say hi to some employees or peers the same way you say hello to others.
Right. And they're watching.
Absolutely.
So they can tell if you're cheerful and saying hello. Hi, Carla, how are you?
Right.
And then you go to Rick or Mike, who's extra credit, as you would say, and you're like, hi, good morning.
And keep it moving.
They can pick up on that. So you need to be consistent.
Absolutely.
Across the board.
Absolutely.
So let's check out some of your posts, which really was one of the reasons why I wanted you here, because I love your posts. So the people know it's on LinkedIn.
Yes.
So hop on LinkedIn, and it's under Carla Washington, and she does this work rule post, and it comes out every Wednesday. Every Wednesday. And right now I'm looking at rule number 33, but you have so many.
Yes.
And I look for those because the space that I'm in, working with leaders,
sure,
I've taken some of these little nuggets and I've either dug into them or shared them. So I love that. And I love the fact, Carla, that most of all is that you've taken your years of experience, and this is something that I cherish personally, and then you shared it with the world.
Right.
And I think that's how we make things better.
Yes.
We make things better by sharing our knowledge and by sharing our experience with others. And it's something that I think we all can do better. I think the world can do a better job of that. We're so, this is mine and don't steal this and don't take that. But you're just giving us some knowledge. So let me go ahead and share before I go on. So this is the most recent one. Ruled, and it's all called Work Rule. And this is Work Rule 22. In most cases, coworkers are not your confidence, at least not for the first 12 months.
I'm just saying.
So, girl, when I read that, I just said, don't tell your business for at least a year, at least. You know me, it's going to be like 4 years, but this is like, don't tell your business, everybody.
And I think it's important that you have to observe and see what's going on. I remember one of my places of employment, I had a new manager, and my peer was like, well, Carla, what do you think of so-and-so? And I'm in my head, I'm like, well, I barely know you, so I'm not going to say anything. And my response was, I'm looking forward to this new change.
Right.
Period.
Right. Right.
And
Yes.
so there's just things you just need to keep in mind, and we forget. So
I love that one. Here's another one. So I know I'm not looking right. I'm right here. I'm right here on LinkedIn. I'm on your page. I'm looking at your different posts. And this one here I love. It's about leaders. I'm looking for it here. And it talks about, you have a DEI Matters one, which is leadership. This Work Rule 32. DEI Matters. It's really this simple, and you just break it down. Diversity means variety. All right, why are we thinking that? And guess what? Everybody's part of diversity. Every on the
Exactly.
planet. It's not a black thing.
Everyone.
It's not a woman
Absolutely.
thing. It's not a millennial thing.
It's a people
It's
thing.
a people thing. Equity is fair, okay? Equitable. That's what it
Absolutely.
is. Doesn't mean, and guess what? Sometimes equity doesn't feel fair
correct.
because it's equity. We didn't say equality.
Right.
Different definition, right?
Absolutely.
Definitely. And then inclusion. It is like even me, like include me.
Absolutely.
See me,
It's
hear me,
easy.
so I love that one. But here's the one. You did the say hello to everyone. That's Work Rule 21. Say hello to everyone, even when they don't say hello to you.
That's
That
right.
Work Rule. And then Work Rule 29 is do the right thing all the time. Yes, even then, do the right thing.
Yes.
Show up and do the right thing.
In the long run, it's going to make a difference. It's going to make a difference. And doing the right thing doesn't have to be difficult. If people that you are interacting with, if they question, why would you do that? Well, why not? And at the end of everything, my integrity matters. And I hope that people take away that if you have nothing else, you have your integrity.
That's right. I agree.
And you want people to come back to you, and you want people to know, even if it was a difficult decision, that this person had the nerve to make the right decision, even when it was difficult.
Right. Good. That's really spoke volumes to me, because to me, doing the right thing is ultimately a peace of mind.
Absolutely.
Like you did it. It may not have been favorable, may not have been equitable,
Or
it may not have
comfortable.
been comfortable. A lot of times things aren't, but you did
Right.
the right thing.
Absolutely.
So what was your crystal clear moment to launch this? What made you say, it's time for me to share this information? Because I know you, you share.
Right.
And so what made you say, I'm going to put this on, LinkedIn and other social areas that you utilize, you put this Work Rules out on. When did you have that moment?
I stepped out of my comfort zone because I would share things, just kind of share for fun every now and again, because I really have a desire to help people in the workspace. And I prayed about what else should I be doing? And I said, God, show me what should I be doing that's going to make me uncomfortable. And
Ooh,
trust and
you
believe
prayed that one?
this made me uncomfortable because that's not in my nature.
Yeah, you're saying, God, just a little pinch here and there.
Yes. And I'm like, I'm going to do Work Rules.
Love it.
And just one day I was like, okay, he must have said something, because now you're like, you're going to do it. And once you start, you can't stop in the middle. You need to carry it out.
You do.
And so I'm going to do a full year. So there'll be 52.
Yes.
And
then we're going to have a book.
I
don't know where that, I don't know if you thought about it, but
I don't know. Well,
this just came up here. I think we got, I know my listeners are probably already thinking that. So, because they're smart, they get it.
My goodness.
They're entrepreneurials or leaders. You guys are probably saying there's a book there, because it's all about the simple stuff. We make everything so deep and complicated.
Yes.
And it's about the simple things.
Yes.
So here is Work Rule number 10. Okay, this is the one that I think was my first favorite.
okay.
Lead in a way that others want to be on your team.
Absolutely.
Lead in the way that people want to be on your team. That's a book there.
Well,
The title of a really good book for a leader.
It's easy. And Crystal, I receive that. I receive that something more will come out of this. And when you want people on your team, if I'm mean, people don't want to be on my team. Okay. If I think differently, people
you mean
want
you
to
have
be
to
on
be
my
nice
team.
to be a leader?
Well, it's a start.
I know, right? But sometimes you got to tell people that, huh?
Right.
I remember once when I was in leadership, I had a supervisor. At that time, I think I was at a director level who were in a one-on-one.
Right.
Who said that they didn't like people,
Right.
and she had 18 people who reported to her.
Well, I suggest then you go have a team of dogs.
Yeah. So she was managed out. It was not a good fit for her.
Right.
And her team didn't receive her well. She was already, like you said, mean and
Right.
all these not approachable
Right.
and, not patient, wasn't kind, wasn't empathetic. So all the boxes she was checking. But when she said, well, I really don't like working with people. I'm like, and you're in leadership? We're going to fix that.
Right.
Yeah,
that's difficult.
We're going to make you happy too, because you're not even
Right.
happy. You're miserable and they hate you.
Right. And sometimes there's not anything you can do to change that if the person doesn't desire that.
Right. Yes, definitely. So lead in a way that others want to be on your team. And you said, just don't be mean to people.
It's that simple. Yeah. It is that simple. And there are times, and that's why in leadership, you have to have many faces of leadership. And people often talk about the golden rule of treat others the way you would like to be treated. And I challenge you to think about treat others the way they need to be treated.
I agree with that. Yes. Absolutely. Because
And
we're all
so-
different and we're all
Right.
uniquely made and we have different needs.
Right.
And those needs change.
They change over time. And, if you are a leader and you need to talk to somebody about their productivity, someone might be able to come up to you, Crystal, and say, Crystal, we need to have a conversation about what happened yesterday. And you're good with that because that fits your personality. You come up to me, you might need to say, hey, Carla, let's talk about yesterday. Because I don't respond well if you have too much bass in your voice when you're trying to address me about a situation.
Fix your tone.
And so people don't hear what they're not able to receive.
Right. Know your people.
Which
Means you need to take time with them. And I tell you, when I work with C-suite, we probably spend most of our time on relationships and getting them to be comfortable being authentic.
Absolutely.
Which means sometimes you come to work, it's okay to say, I don't want to come to work today. I wanted to stay home with my kids.
Right.
That's okay to say that.
Yes.
Because other folks are feeling that way too.
100%.
It's okay to come in the office and be who you are. People want that.
Right.
So getting them to become, first of all, know yourself.
Right.
It's a whole nother conversation.
Yes. A lot of people may not know themselves.
Yeah, because they've been, the corporate person for so long. To your point earlier, the job has become them.
Right.
But they've lost identity, so they don't even know who they are.
And the funny thing about that is, and this has been on social media and in my friend group that we communicate and talk about and have funny things, is there's one that talks about if your friends could come see you at work and see how you perform and how you are in your workspace, they would see a different person. And I think sometimes, your friends would be amazed at, oh my gosh, I mean, I knew you were good and great, but I didn't know that you had to function like that in your workspace, And so, and leaders need to think about when you get home, what are people saying about you?
Because they are talking about you.
100%.
They're talking about you. I would tell whenever, when I was in that corporate space, and I would promote someone who was an individual contributor to a leader, and That's a big jump.
Yep.
And that takes a lot of coaching, mentoring, developing. You just can't throw people out there.
Right.
And that happens all the time.
It sure does.
And just because you're good at the individual contributor job doesn't mean you have the skill set for leadership.
Exactly.
So this particular lady did. She really had some good, solid, natural skills, and she was coachable. So I said to her, I said, remember when you guys would go out for happy hour and your friends and you talk about your manager? And she's like, yeah. Well, they're doing that to you now.
Okay.
And she looked at me. I said, yeah, you're part of leadership. I go, now, I said that to say that think about when you were in that role. So you're not uniquely different.
Right,
So you want to lead in a way that people want to follow you.
Absolutely.
As a new leader, you know. Right. So that reminded me of that one. So here's work rule 16. Pursue passions outside of work. Self-development, personal development isn't just for the office. Ask an entrepreneur, which is me. I think this is huge. I actually think approaching your work in the business space as an entrepreneur is just actually approaching your job. So say, I work at FedEx or I work at Google, whatever, and I go into it with the mindset that my job is as I'm an entrepreneur. I'm the owner of this role. Right. Doesn't take away the fact that you may have other aspirations. No. But I found when I did shift into this job as like an entrepreneur, I learned things more about myself. And then I saw my gaps.
Well, and I think you take better ownership of your responsibilities at work. And, what does that look like? Well, that looks like if you owned this company or owned your role, what initiatives would you take to make it better? And initiative does not mean, I'm going to start, acting in a supervisory space or anything like that. Initiative means, for me, as an example, I decided I want to do a new hire orientation. It's not required, but I do it. And I want to see employees before they're deep into the job. I want to have that conversation with you. I want to build that relationship with you so that you understand what my role is.
That's good.
And when you understand what the HR role is, going back to what you said earlier, when HR walks into a room, it doesn't have to be this whole situation.
Right. Yes.
And when employees make it a situation, typically it's something that they need to develop within themselves. And I respect the space when I walk into a room and people want to exit or say, oh, HR is in the room. And I'm like, I just came to say hi.
Right. Yes. I know. I was hoping that's changing. I think it's going to be slow, but hopefully that can change. People can view you as more of a resource.
Time. Right.
Like
and that's
said,
it.
That's
literally
a resource. Right. You're a resource for them. And it's missing that. So what would you say, what would be your opinion that you would give, if you can give maybe 3 points or 3 tips for leaders who are struggling right now to lead? We've got 4 generations in the workplace. In some industries, 5. Right. Hospitality has 5. Healthcare has 5. And think about both of those are massive workforces. Right. And we have leaders that are, millennials now are in leadership. They're old enough to hit director level, maybe some more even a little higher. Right. And we have Gen X, that's us. And then we have, of course, our baby boomers are still working. Right. And then we have this massive generation of young people that are hitting the road. Gen Z is looking at one of the largest, if not the largest generation. Right. What would you tell leaders who are going to be working another 10 years or plus? Hey, I'm going to be doing this for 10 plus more years. What tips would you give them or would you share so that they are effective and then they are, relationship building leaders? They're servant leaders. Right. What would you say to them as some tips?
For one of the tips I would give, and we've talked about building relationships, and so it's not about saying build a relationship. Let me tell you how. So one of the ways that you can build a relationship is make sure that you find out at least 3 things about everybody on your team that are personal, that you can have conversations with them about it as time goes on. As you build that relationship, they're going to be able to come to you and feel more comfortable, and you're going to get more out of them.
So build a relationship, but have a strategy.
Correct.
And one of the things you can do is learn 3 things about your individuals over time, a minimum. So you're having authentic conversations.
Absolutely.
How are your kids? How was Johnny's soccer game?
Absolutely.
Did your mom enjoy Mother's Day? You took her out to
Yes.
brunch. Where your conversations aren't
Right.
stale, they're real, meaningful, and people care.
Well, the other thing is they start to learn about you, and they realize that you as a leader, you're also human.
Oh, for sure, right. Definitely.
Absolutely.
So that's tip number 1. What's the
Yes.
other tip?
The other tip I would give is make sure that you lead with your heart and your head.
Yes. I really get that.
And it can be difficult
Yes.
because there is a stereotype of what a leader should be like, and being stoic,
Right.
and not caring about things that happen. And so you need to make it a combo pack. Lead with your heart and lead with your head so that you're making the right decisions.
I just had did a podcast with a CEO of an organization. He's one of my clients. And Matt, his name is Matt, and he said this, so I don't feel like I'm like sharing anything that he
Right.
said on the podcast, but he leads, he's a CEO of a business, just a good guy,
Right.
straight up good guy, really is doing DEI really well in their business. And I'm really proud to be a partner with them. But he told me, this is an example of heart. He said, he tries to hold back the tears, but when he's doing like town halls, he may well up.
Right, right.
When he's recognizing top performers, he may well up.
Right.
If one of his employees having a bad time and he's feeling it, he may well up and cry,
Right.
So, and he was like, oh, I'm working on it. I go, no, that's what make you incredibly
Makes you human.
unique.
Right,
That's
right.
why your folks love you.
Right.
That's why you can ask them to do just about anything and they'll do it. When I come in your office, I feel that they feel valued.
Right.
I feel it. I'm your partner. You're my client. I feel part of your team because of who you are.
Right.
So I love that you make that clear. So number 2 is lead with your head and heart, balance it,
Absolutely.
and know when to go there.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's a heart issue, and sometimes it's your head.
It's a right.
Yeah, sometimes it's a head. So
You have to
and you know what?
evaluate that.
Some leaders have been around for a while, and you know who you are. You may need to step back in the game of personal self-development.
Right.
You may need to get some tools in your toolkit.
Just a
Toolkit is
few
20th
things.
century. We're the 21st. Right. Just saying.
Absolutely.
If you haven't
Absolutely.
had training in iSafe, or if you're a leader, you haven't had any personal development and self-development within your business, within leadership in the last 2 years, you're dated.
Right.
You're dated. Because I know things I know that 2
You
years
have
ago
to.
that leaders weren't doing.
Right,
That they
right.
should be now if they want to be successful.
Absolutely.
So good.
Absolutely.
So number 3, your third tip.
My third tip for leaders would be recognize the value of recognition. And recognition does not have to be financial. Recognition, and I will tell you, one of my most favorite managers ever. This is when I worked for Doubletree Hotels. This was 100 years ago. His name is Greg. He's still one of my favorite people ever. I've not worked for Greg in over 25 years. To this day, I still have the handwritten note that he gave to me, thanking me for something that I had done.
So the power of a thank you, like this entire time, I don't think you noticed, you completely lit up telling this story. And this is the impact of someone doing something sincere and thinking that you remember that feeling.
Absolutely.
From then. You revisited that with us. You know, getting that note, face lit up, you still feel. So what did that make you feel, getting that?
It made me feel valued. And you and I have already we've brought it up several times. People need to know and want to know they matter. As a leader, you want to know you matter. And when your people that work with you and work for you, when they're doing their very best, that's because you matter. So reciprocate that.
Absolutely. Yes, I love that. I think I like that tip probably. It's probably my favorite today. Tomorrow, maybe something else. Right now is that piece. I did a training with an organization yesterday, and I think we spent probably a good 30 minutes on recognition, you know, talking about, you know, non-monetary, monetary, and getting them to share ideas and being, and how about this? Ask people, how do you want to be recognized? You'd be surprised. Sometimes just asking people what they like.
Right.
It could be, you know, hey, I like when you recognize what I do every day, or write a good email, or
Absolutely.
you know, whatever. Or so it's sometimes just simply asking if you're not sure, comfortable, or that's a new muscle for you.
Have the conversation.
Have a conversation. So cool. So oh wow, I love this, and I can talk about leadership forever, because that's my jam, my lane. I love working with organizations and all those levels. So thank you for coming. But before I let you go, I always ask everyone this question.
Okay.
Do you have a word for this year? And if you do,
I do.
How are you working it out? Tell me how you walking that word out in your world.
And this is so, again, out of the norm for me. I guess 2024 has been, let's do stuff that makes you uncomfortable.
Uh-oh.
But my word for 2024 was abundance.
Ooh, that's fantastic. I probably say that word every day.
Yeah, and
I love that.
I didn't know exactly what that was going to be.
Wow.
And
I feel that for you.
Abundance in my health and in my home.
Yes, I love it.
In everything that I'm doing.
I love that. I love that.
So that was my word for 2020.
I love that's fantastic. I always use abundance when I'm in the entrepreneur space, especially if I'm with people, we do similar roles.
Right.
And I go, I have an abundance mindset. There's enough pie for everybody. And God has my slices already for me. Yes. So your slices and my slices, they're already cut.
Oh, yes.
He's already, you know, distribute. Our job is to do your purpose and go get it.
Exactly.
Go get it. I love abundance.
Yes.
That's fantastic. So mine is consistency.
Wow.
So I know it. So I'm always checking myself. It's interesting, even like the little things, being consistent with. I'm focusing on being consistent with quiet time. Yes. My meditation, my prayers, making that consistent. And so, and I'm building on in other areas. So that's what if I ask you your word, I need to share what mine is too.
I love it.
I'm gonna steal some of yours and be consistently abundant.
With thoughts, with everything.
Everything. Absolutely. Love it. Good. So Carla, thank you for being my guest.
Thank you.
This has been fantastic. Great. I just know that the podcast listeners are going to grab just some of the pearls of wisdoms. We'll keep an eye out, you guys. Work Rule. You have to go on LinkedIn. Yes. I know it's on Facebook. I think you have Instagram as well, or you just pretty much on LinkedIn. Okay.
It is on Facebook, and it's Work Rule Wednesdays.
Right, yes. And I love it on LinkedIn because our audience, that's kind of where I play too, typically because of my audience. These are rules that they could pull up every morning.
Absolutely.
Before they begin their day. And you know what? If you do lead a team, I have something I want to ask of you. I have an ask. If you do lead a team, how about share the work rules with your team and have a conversation?
Absolutely.
What a great way to start a meeting.
Right. And it's easy. And we call that in the training space. It can be polling or just having some free form conversation. It breaks the ice before you get into the business of what needs to happen. And now your folks are comfortable, the conversation is flowing, and then you automatically go into the topic at hand.
Good, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Carla. I appreciate you. Lady Carla, I love you.
Thank you, Lady Crystal.
Thank you.
Love you
Appreciate
back.
it.